that piece is a lie.
It's time.
What if I told you that the galaxy far away has a dark side? As iconic as the Star Wars franchise is, there's a hidden enemy that threatens to disrupt the Force CGI. That groundbreaking technology that brought us jaw-dropping visuals also holds the title for Star Wars Biggest Pitfall. Star Wars changed how movies use fancy computer effects, making stories even more exciting. While CGI can be cool, sometimes it takes away from the story's feelings and make it less emotional. Using real effects again and making fewer movies could make Star Wars feel fresh again by making sure each one is really good. Star Wars started as a big, exciting story, kinda like those old-timey movies that showed a bit of the story each week. George Lucas started in the middle with Episode 4 because the whole story was too much for just one movie. That was the best way for him to show what he imagined, and back then, no one knew if there would even be more movies after the first one.
I watched Star Wars movies with him.
But now, after 40 years, there are plenty of Star Wars projects. It's not running out anytime soon. Nowadays, there might be too much Star Wars stuff happening all at once, which can be tough on coming up with new ideas. The cool thing about CGI is that it makes things look huge and real, which is great for Star Wars, but it also means more pressure to keep being creative. The future of Star Wars looks bright, but it might be better to slow down a bit and focus on making fewer but really good projects instead of making too many. One way to do that is by thinking about how much we use CGI and trying more real effects. This can make a big difference, not just in how things look, but in the whole feel of the story. We shouldn't even realize it's there. It should look so natural that it draws us into the story without us thinking about it. Sometimes we end up talking about how good CGI is, like, wow, look at that amazing CGI, it must have taken forever to make. But really, if we're talking about it, then it's not doing its job right. CGI is starting to get worse because it's trying too hard to amaze us instead of blending in seamlessly. Nowadays, with super clear screens like 2K and 4K and even faster with HFR, we can spot CGI's weaknesses more easily. As screens get clearer, CGI doesn't look as real as it used to. In every new movie, the CGI has to be even cooler, more detailed and wilder than before. They always want to outdo themselves. Instead of focusing on the story, characters and plot, they try to wow us with bigger explosions and action scenes. One big problem is that in a world full of sequels, we don't feel worried about our main characters anymore. We don't get attached to them because we know they won't die or get hurt. They've signed up for more movies, so there's no real danger. Filmmakers are trying to fix this by making scenes super over the top to keep us interested, but it can get kinda silly after a while. CGI has made filmmakers rely too much on fixing things later instead of doing the hard work up front. It's like they've become lazy because they know they can just edit everything on a computer. CGI is kind of like a drug. The more we use it, the less special it feels. A small collapsing set used to be cool, but now we want to see whole buildings fall. Meeting Darth Vader by chance? Boring. We want a huge epic fight that takes forever to make, even if it costs tons of time and money. Nowadays, using computer effects in movies is so common that we hardly even talk about it anymore. Most big movies use CGI, especially in franchises like Star Wars and the Marvel movies.
Stark said you wouldn't get that because it's not a Star Wars reference.
And there are some really good reasons for it. CGI lets filmmakers create scenes exactly how they want them, safely and without spending a ton of money on building real sets. Many awesome scenes in recent blockbusters couldn't happen without CGI. Just think of the epic hero moments in Avengers Endgame.
Where are the Avengers?
Or the thrilling sandworm ride in the Dune Part 2.
The largest and most dangerous organism on Arrakis is the sandworm.
Those scenes wouldn't be possible without CGI, and they're some of the coolest parts of the modern movies. Sometimes CGI can be a quick way to make things look cool without focusing on telling a good story. It can make movies feel empty and distant, taking away from the excitement of the story. Star Wars has had its share of struggles with using too many effects. People have been saying since the beginning that it cares more about looking flashy than having substance. The debate has continued as effects get better and cheaper. Compared to other big franchises like Marvel and DC, Star Wars is doing okay, but its success doesn't always come from CGI. CGI can make it easy for studios to churn out lots of movies fast, but it can also make big franchises like Star Wars feel less special. Bringing back real locations and sets, even just a bit, could really help Star Wars get its magic back. George Lucas used a lot of CGI in the prequel trilogy. He said he needed it to show the huge Clone Wars and the Republic falling apart. And looking at how big those movies were, it makes sense. Even as technology improved over the years, Star Wars kept using CGI to make things look awesome. This has been super helpful, especially for streaming shows that can now look as good as big movies. George Lucas used a lot of CGI in the prequel trilogy. The advantages of CGI are clear, and it's incredibly creative, but relying too much on it might not be great for Star Wars in the long run, especially if it's just about saving money and making things fast. Bringing back practical effects could be the game changer Star Wars needs. Jabba the Hutt in The Return of Jedi was memorable because he was a puppet, not CGI. If Star Wars focuses more on that approach, it can stay strong and true to its roots. Star Wars Episode 4 from 1977 actually featured one of the first three-dimensional CGI scenes in the film history, a 40-second sequence with the Death Star. All the other special effects were handmade and were convincing because they were seamlessly integrated into the story. Episode 1 through 3 had a very different approach. From the first moment on, the viewer is literally bombarded with CGI. The scenes may look fantastic, but they are so numerous, overloaded, and in the focus of the action that the actual plot of the movies more or less moves into the background. It was easy to see what went awry. They forgot that the story is the most crucial part of any movie. Special effects are like fancy decorations. They don't make the story better, just prettier. The heavy use of computer effects in episode 1 to 3 took away from the story. This was a problem for many movies in the 90s and 2000s too. These days, there's a pushback against using too much CGI. Directors know that a great story is more important than fancy effects. Plus, there is a comeback of old-school handmade effects. They have a unique charm and are much more pleasing to watch than cold computer animations. Star Wars shows us that being innovative doesn't always mean completely changing everything. Fans of Star Wars wouldn't have minded if most of the effects in episode 1 to 3 were done by hand. In fact, they might have loved it even more. Nowadays, these handmade effects would probably look even better than they did back then. Maybe the audience would have been amazed, with their mouths wide open. Having a great story along with well-made effects would have been a perfect balance. Computer animations could have still been used to complement these effects, just like in the first Star Wars movie. We can expect more Star Wars movies in the future. Hopefully this time the creators will pay more attention to a great story and realistic effects. This way, Star Wars can be as awesome as it used to be. So what's the takeaway from Star Wars' success? It's pretty straightforward. Don't lose sight of the main idea, which in this case is the story. If you want things to turn out well, we often talk about the essence of an idea or topic. Also, we learned that new things like CGI in Star Wars are cool, but they should be used carefully and not overshadow the main point. We would love to hear your insights on this topic. Share your thoughts in the comments below. A thumbs up would mean a lot, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates. Until next time, take care everyone.